Welcome back, Commander.
This is
My house tells.
Mysteries.
Fact, fantasy, and history have come together to tease the imagination.
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Oh yeah, disclaimer that we didn't do in the first episode. Nothing we say has any sort of guarantee to be factual at all.
Purely for entertainment reasons.
Yeah, we don't know what we're talking about really. We just Google and Wikipedia stuff.
We know a little bit. I mean, we've done our research. Our research may not be foolproof.
But Matt, what is knowing though? What is really knowing?
This is all speculation. You know, that's what we're reporting on.
Not to be confused with Speculoos cookie butter, which is a product Trader Joe's sells.
Yep.
All right, Atlantis, the lost city / country. How can it be both? Atlantis. We believe that the first mention of Atlantis was from Plato. So he made two, I think they're books. They were like tied, there's like a bunch of parchment that he just probably tied together with like reeds. And one was called Timaeus, and the other one was called Critias. And these were what is widely believed to be the first historical mentions of Atlantis, which Plato described as a gigantic naval power and an island that besieged ancient Athens. And at the end of the story, Atlantis loses to Athens, and the gods are like, damn Atlantis, what a pussy, you lost. I don't like you anymore. And it's like the gods send...
Whoa, were these Atlantean gods or were these Greek gods?
These are the Greek gods.
Because part of it is the island of Atlantis was like what you sent us was like Poseidon let his like children
let his people go.
Atlantis.
Oh,
like,
we'll get into
Atlas,
that.
Okay.
You know, like the one that holds the fucking globe.
Oh yeah,
Atlas is like the first king, and he rules like the because
of Atlantis.
Is also the
of Atlantis.
island.
So are these some sort of like super beings that lived in Atlantis?
Yeah, it was said that Atlantis, the population of Atlantis in Plato's quote unquote myth, half god, half man.
Yeah, so like he had like there's 5 kings of Atlantis or something, and then
Oh wow. Wait, did they live like extremely long, or was
they're
60
gods.
years?
Atlas is a god.
So they could live forever.
And less.
So how could there be 5 kings if they live forever?
There were different sections of Atlantis.
Atlantis was also the capital of Atlantis.
So
It's very confusing.
yeah,
island
it's
itself
like
is-
Kansas City.
Kansas City's actually not in Kansas.
It's partly in Kansas, part of it in Missouri. Thank you.
But that's not Atlantis. But yeah, no. So
Shut up.
there were sections like Atlas got to rule the main section of Atlantis, like the big central tower, and his siblings. They had like a shit ton of twins, Poseidon and hold on, where's the name? Poseidon and Cleito. Maybe that's where the word clitoris comes from. Who knows?
Same thought.
Was Clydo like a god
Goddess.
in the bed?
Down in Savoy.
So Poseidon and Cleito had like a shit ton of kids, and
So yes.
and Atlas was the one given the rule. And they were all. Atlas also had a twin, and the twin got to rule some other part of Atlantis.
Wait,
and they
wait.
had like a bunch
So-
of other sets of twins.
I'm just curious, how did Atlas become like the holder of the world?
He was the oldest.
So that's why it's more like figurative?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a
Okay.
totally different like story. I mean,
And it's still the same story.
well, no, like the holder of the world. Like,
The holder of the world?
That's different from the Atlantis.
Oh, Atlas?
Yeah, Atlas. He held up the world.
Oh, I thought you were saying it's a different story why he's the ruler. And I was like, that's definitely not a different story. Oh my god. Wait, hold on. We didn't even finish. Okay, so the Atlantis, once they were defeated by Athens, because Brad Pitt defeated them in that movie.
Oh, of course.
Right?
Yes.
The gods, Atlantis fell out of favor with the gods, and the gods sent like a huge earthquake, tsunami, shitstorm, and within a day, Atlantis was destroyed and sunk into the sea. Yeah. And that is the Plato legend.
Which And where Atlantis was described to be was the Strait of Gibraltar, where Western Europe and Africa are like closest together. In Plato's writing, it says it was to the west of that throughout. Like if you were looking from Athens out, it was past that.
So it was in the Mediterranean.
No,
Yeah,
it was,
well- Atlantic.
There's speculation where it actually was, but
Yeah, I was just
Plato
reading an
references-
article the other day that said it was like off the coast of Spain.
There's a lot of. We'll talk about a lot of the
But
locations.
what Plato mentions is that it's specifically past the Strait of Gibraltar in the Atlantic Ocean.
Which is probably
Based
where
off
Atlantic
Atlas.
Ocean is probably named after.
It's named after Atlas.
Oh,
But-
right.
Yeah, and Atlantis,
but
but
it's all comes back to the same like naming. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, and what's crazy is the size of Atlantis. Like I always thought it was just like a small island, but the research that Jeremy sent me suggests that what he described was that it was bugging huge. It was.
But how could a whole continent, if you're saying
it
it's like
was
a
a whole
continent,
continent,
how
yeah.
could that just drown?
well, that's
into
why
the
a lot
sea?
of people don't think it's real, and that's why there are some people who think that Antarctica used to be Atlantis. Like
And then a global
Wait,
shift.
how does that even make any sense?
I don't know, because it's huge. Like you could be and then the gods got mad and like ice, baby. But that's like there's some people who think that. And as far as the location, like you'll see like there's some dude, I don't know, some guy who's a scientist or something, who said like look at a map and put your finger anywhere on the map. And someone will have said Atlantis used to be there. So, theory 1. Did Plato design the theory of Atlantis from scratch? There's so much ambiguity. What Kevin was saying, like, oh, Plato describes it as, between the Mediterranean, which is, okay, what Plato said it in, he describes it as, like, you go past the pillars of Heracles or Hercules, which is kind of, like, that mouth of the Mediterranean that opens up into the Atlantic.
Straight up, yeah.
Yeah, like
like
under
wait, Spain and Morocco.
Under Spain,
Or-
Spain and Morocco, exactly. And you go through there, and there lay an island which was larger than Libya and Asia together. Confederation of kings, great and marvelous power, held sway all over the island. And some people think like, oh, maybe Plato was just inspired by this other island that sunk off the coast of Spain and like took a little bit of liberty with the location of where it was. And there's like there's other people who think that Plato didn't make it up. And one version of the events is that 300 years before Plato, there was a person named Solon who was told by Egyptian priests about Atlantis, and these priests read it from existing texts in like the Egyptian
existing
records.
from aliens
From-
that came down.
It's
It
the
all goes back to the
freaking
Great Pyramids.
aliens.
Yeah, I mean, this all comes back to the Great Pyramids. Last episode, aliens were involved. Clearly, the aliens. I mean, maybe the Greek gods were
we're
the
aliens.
and maybe
was
possibly Egypt was part 2 of their plan. It was like okay, Atlantis sank, but we can start over. Egypt, Great Pyramids.
It's like, woo, make some energy. But yeah, so that is one idea, and the idea that it was just a story is all. This is the most boring chunk of the research.
Okay.
So it's that Plato just wanted to make a place that was the antithesis to perfect society, and he was trying to say Athens is perfect, beautiful, and Atlantis was not. And like they are, because what the story of Atlantis as told by him was like these great people, like culturally, technologically advanced, but like human nature, the darkness of it ruined everything, and people got greedy and disgusting and did all this stuff, and then it collapsed. And here, this will be crucial for later. The way he describes Atlantis in the books, there were mountains in the northern portions along the shore. There was a great plain in an oblong shape in the south, extending in one direction 345 miles, 230 miles to cross the island's center, and 6 miles from the coast there was a mountain low on all sides. And the legend part is that Poseidon carved the mountains where his love dwelt, his Cleito, in a palace. and enclosed it within 3 circular moats, which is why if you look at a lot of art of Atlantis, there's all the circles.
Isn't that a little bit specific for like just to make a point? I mean, why do you have to go into the dimensions of certain regions of the space that you're just making up?
Maybe J.R.R. Tolkien went back in time and was like, you gotta be super specific.
You gotta create your own language, bro.
Use your words. It's like specificity is the key. No, that is a good point, though. And the Atlanteans built bridges northward from the mountain, making a route to the rest of the island, which is where all Atlas's siblings ruled. And they dug a great canal to the sea, and alongside there were bridges that were carved into tunnels, into rings of rock so that ships could pass into the city around the mountain. Oh my god.
I mean,
docks, moats.
Yeah, all this stuff is like very specific. And you're right. I mean, it sounds like a J.R.R. Tolkien novel.
Sounds like heaven. No. Because it says then that the walls were made of red, white, and black rock quarried from the moats, and they were covered in brass, tin, and orichalcum.
I guess here's another thing. How could he be so specific when it sunk way before his time?
Well,
Did it sink before his time?
It must have. Because you were talking about the guy 300 years before Plato that got knowledge from the Egyptians about Atlantis, right?
Well, that's if he actually got told the knowledge versus if he made it up.
Well,
Okay.
Here's where people are just wrong.
He
There's
means
no
himself.
way Plato just like made this shit up, or he could have made it up. But the thing is, he like does what Hollywood does and like borrows shit from other shit, because this story is common throughout several different cultures. And
So you're saying it was a real thing because we have all these separate accounts?
well, that's
Oh, we'll get
gonna
into
talk
that.
about later.
Oh my.
But Plato, he's just the first person to record it, and so we like credit him with this story. At that time, that's like saying Shakespeare, all of his stories were original when they weren't. Like,
Well, you're talking about like Macbeth, right? Or like it's
everything.
based in fact, but he added a lot of other stuff to it, a lot of his own
it's just
imagination.
and that was something we'll get into later. Is just about there's so many different like cultures that talk about this story in different ways, and
I mean, it's
Plato
just like the
happened to
Great
be the
Flood,
first one to record
you know?
it.
Yeah, exactly.
with
Well, no, it
Noah.
ties Atlantis and the Great Flood are tied together.
coincide.
Yeah.
Wow, that was
Because of the stories
Perfect.
told by people. But that's towards the end.
What's the next bullet point?
Here's another one. Few scientists, if any, believe that Atlantis was a real thing.
That's because scientists just like to shit on fun.
Exactly, right?
Well, no.
Scientists are killers of fun.
They have a scientific method, and hearsay is not part of that scientific method.
They're like, well, we haven't seen Atlantis sink firsthand, so how do we know it sunk?
Like the people who think Atlantis is a reference to a specific place often like peg it someplace in the Mediterranean Sea, which goes against what Plato said in his writings. Because Plato said it was in the Atlantic Ocean. Like,
Yeah, but maybe Plato was just messing around because they didn't want people to
Well-
know the real Atlantis.
well, the thing is, like, if people are going to, like, because if Plato is like the main creditor of this story, why does he talk about it as in the, like, if it's off past the Strait of Gibraltar, like, rather than like why wouldn't he just reference islands that are
Yeah, I mean, well, then there's also like Socrates, which I believe is also referenced in Plato's book as well.
No,
And a lot of
Socrates
people
was a
don't-
student.
But a lot of people don't know if he was real because Socrates is only referenced in his book. Nobody knows if
Oh.
Socrates is actually real.
Really? That's fucking
guys
crazy.
might have to fact check.
Here's one theory of who was Atlantis, right? Who ran Atlantis. There's a theory that it was these things called the Sea Peoples, which were a confederation of groups known to have attacked ancient Egypt prior to the late Bronze Age collapse. And these Sea Peoples could have come from West Anatolia or Southern Europe, and they are conjectured to have sailed around the Eastern Mediterranean and invaded Anatolia, which is weird if they're from there. Why are you invading your homeland? Syria, Canaan, biblical Canaan shows how long ago this was, Cyprus, and Egypt. So they could be raiders, scattered soldiers, or refugees who had turned to pirates.
That's not even nearly as cool as Atlantis. Dude, those are just pirates.
Just like Atlantean, like the Atlantean. We are the sea people from Atlantis. Another theory, ready? And I believe this was originated by Sir Francis Bacon. I don't know if he was a sir. I just added sir. in front
No,
of it.
Sir Francis Bacon.
He was a sir?
Yeah.
He conjectured that Atlantis actually was the American continent. And there are rumors that the Freemasons had efforts even before the American Revolutionary War to restore the American continent to its previous Atlantean glory.
What the fuck?
No. I mean, if you think about it, it kind of makes sense. People, even the Vikings, had been to America before Columbus even set foot there. Okay,
Yeah.
so people, dude, they already went to Greenland. Greenland's Greenland's very close to America. To Canada,
How the fuck did they make it to Greenland?
their ship technology was incredible.
That's a different mystery of history.
Yeah, it is. Vikings.
And
Vikings
it-
are really cool too.
Viking, yeah. I mean, they're fucking,
Mysterious.
what are they, 5-0, 6-0? It's a football.
Well done, Jeremy.
No, but, and if it was the Americas, that fits the bigger than, was it Syria and Asia combined? It was Libya, not Syria, but still Libya. That's so random.
that's still pretty random.
You take Asia, you take Libya, you put it together. Atlantis is big.
Because like Asia's huge.
Yeah.
Asia's huge. So Russia, isn't Russia technically part of Asia? It's like North Asian,
Yeah.
Northern Asia.
No, yeah, like the part of
I know it's like
Russia,
Eastern Europe.
The part of Russia no one lives in is Asia.
So I just think the America could be Atlantis is. I mean, the Vikings could have made it to America. There's no way.
Dude, you don't give ancient humans enough credit. We were awesome back then, and we're still awesome.
yeah.
We're just more awesome
Yeah.
now.
We
Yeah,
have
that's just fucking
exploding
insane.
Samsung phones now.
I mean, Jesus. That is like a landmark of technology right
We
there.
have like
Could probably
danger on
swim
there.
really well back then.
Do you know that Note 7s are now illegal on planes?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard about that because one like burned through a carpet. What is that?
That would be my... It's just because my phone's near it.
That would be the aliens.
It's the aliens.
But yeah,
Wait,
so-
Trying to contact us in Morse code. That kind of sounded like Morse code.
You're on the right train.
You're almost there.
Find us in Atlantis. Oh man, no, but okay. So I'm just confused. Like, are they saying the entire continent of the Americas was Atlantis, or Atlantis was on the American continents? Because even right now with modern technology, there's nothing between like California and New York. There's basically. So how would they have
Just
filled
a
the
huge
entire...
place where tornadoes happen.
I'm from Texas, and I take offense to that.
How
I'm just
would
kidding.
They have filled
I love you,
They have
flyover
very-
states. You're awesome.
Colorado, you got some Rockies. No, but what? How would they have filled all that with
They wouldn't
amazing
have.
technology? Yeah,
And it's just like,
that's crazy talk.
yeah, it couldn't have been. Like,
What?
well, there's no way that, I mean, they probably just assumed, even if they did get to America, it's so large that they would have just assumed it was an island.
Okay, yeah, that, and at this point, if they're half gods, then at some point they would have mated with us plebeian humans. So we probably have god blood in us. Sorry, that's just a tangent.
Whoa,
But I like to think that
That's
I do have god
And,
blood.
That's way better than
that message is
Neanderthal
brought to you by
blood.
Donald Trump.
and Charlie Sheen.
Tiger blood.
Well, no, but if you take away like it, that's the thing about Atlantis is like you can pick and choose so many different details about it. But if you take away the half god aspect, it could just be like crazy humans who were able to like
Who were
build
just-
these amazing
yeah.
things. This is kind of my favorite because I love this place, and me and Matt were both there over the summer.
Oh, yeah.
There was a guy. He's talking about geographically. If you think about like the details described by Plato in the books, Ireland, present day Ireland, could be Atlantis.
Yeah, but why?
Ireland's not big enough.
Also,
well, hold on. Let me
Ireland, Atlantis was supposed to have sunk. Ireland is, if you haven't noticed, still there.
Yeah, I know, but okay. There's some crazy factoids though that Erlingson. Why are they all British? Erlingson bases his evidence on Plato's description of Atlantis, which matches Ireland almost perfectly because. Oh, here's a statistic Erlingson threw out. He's like, there is a 99.98% chance that Plato was describing Ireland. Erlingson writes, just like Atlantis, Ireland is 3,000 stadia long, 2,000 stadia wide, and widest over the middle. They both feature a central plain that is open to the sea but fringed by mountains, and no other island on Earth even comes close to this description. And he said it was an Plato said it was of an oblong shape extending in one direction, and he said that Atlantis had 3 mountains on 3 sides, and the 4th side is open to a wide and fertile plain, which is Ireland, like uncannily. And he further states that it was Atlantis was located Aiste Canadian to Nisu, which means in the middle of the island, and which matches the ancient Irish capital of Tara perfectly. So I guess the statistical descriptions that Plato said are in contradiction to his own claim that it was like Libya plus Asia. James Arthur, who's some fucking guy, he says that's the Sumerians, which predates Plato.
Yeah, like Mesopotamia?
Yeah, I think, I don't know, probably. Had records of Atlantis showing that it was, like, there was a similar story before Plato, so he couldn't have invented it. And there are hundreds of structures across the world with, like, folklore, like the local folklore relates these structures to gods and sacrifices and stuff like that. And that have kind of similar architecture to what they think like is like like similar architecture to each other, which people have tied back to the Atlanteans. And there's like a theory that the Atlanteans were like the first people to make pyramids, because you see like pyramids all over the world.
All over the world.
And they think that it was like they think these might have been hallmarks of Atlantean colonies across the world.
Yeah, and this is actually my favorite theory. No, wait, hold on. This is my favorite theory about Atlantis so far is that it was the like first civilization, and that
Began life.
it began life, and then
Civilized life.
Yeah, civilized.
And then they discovered nuclear weapons and they wiped themselves out.
And
Our future. Yay!
No, but that it was like the first like civilization. Like there was people scattered throughout, hunters and gatherers and shit. But like Atlantis was the first, and one of the geographical locations that pegged Atlantis where it might have been was kind of in southeast. Wait, where was it?
Southeast Asia.
I remember it was by Indonesia, and because before the ice age ended and everything, the oceans were about 200 feet lower, and so they were saying at that time there would have been like Indonesia would have been
200 feet
lower, yeah, because
Holy shit.
there was so much ice, and so at that time though, Indonesia would have been the size of. Let me see if I can find the picture. Would have been the size of like a continent by itself, or Jeremy.
And you think it was Indonesia then? That
Well, and then let me see if I can find that picture because it's like so fucking perfect.
Indonesia.
No, that makes a lot of sense. That we were actually. Oh my god! It was the Ice Age that brought us back to caveman era, and that's why we had to rebuild after it thawed. That's when agricultural revolution actually happened. Was right when the Ice Age ended, so we were able to rebuild. That is what stripped us of our technology.
Of Atlantis.
Of Atlantean technology, yeah.
Dude, Matt got so excited. I wish you could have seen his face.
It was pretty. It
was like, yeah.
This is the size of it would have been at the time.
I don't believe it.
Well,
I don't believe in it.
The thing that
I think something happened. Oh, it's right there.
Wait, we talked about Ireland without Irish accents at all. Can we go back?
Well, yeah, we'll cut it in. But yeah, you see the size of that?
Welcome to Atlantis.
All
right
stuff
then.
That's dark.
That's
now currently.
that's
Kevin's
so
trying to
bad.
talk.
Sorry, what are you saying, Kevin?
Would you like a pint of Guinness here at Atlantis?
The
capital.
Do you guys want to take a break right now and just go grab a beer? Yes.
Bitch. Oh, that's another theory that Plato was also a fortune teller and knew that California was about to become Atlantis.
That's not a theory. That's Kevin sucking his own butthole.
How do you suck your own butthole,
dude?
Ask Kevin. He's doing it.
Kevin?
Okay, so for reals, back to my favorite theory on Atlantis is that Plato wasn't the original creator of the Atlantean story. What actually happened was back during the Ice Age, there was one like major civilization that thrived.
During the Ice Age?
Yes, during.
Oh.
Because the ocean was 200 feet lower than what it is currently.
So they had
It
more
was
land.
around Indonesia and the Philippines and
Philippines.
like Sumatra.
Wait, okay, let me get this straight. You're saying that Atlantis came about during the Ice Age because
And
it
it
had
was-
more land.
Well, because at the time, the only like habitable part of the world, because everything's in fucking ice, is this section that was tropical and fertile, and was huge at the time. Like, if the ocean is 200 feet lower, much of Southeast Asia is actually a thrush. Is like a living island that is.
Yeah, and I actually totally buy that because we have climate change right now, global warming. A lot of areas in our Earth in the next 100, 200 years are not going to be livable. They say that the Middle East is going to lose acres, millions and millions of acres of arable land, and the U.S. is actually going to gain arable land. So certain parts of the world are becoming
Exactly.
a little more dead, and they're not going to be able to support life.
But the Ice Age ended a lot quicker than what we're currently going through. And so there's historical accounts that, like, not historical accounts, I'm talking on my asshole now. Again,
It's okay, I can cut that out.
it's put a marker.
Wait, I thought you're talking out your
talking about,
butthole
Kevin?
too? I thought you were just sucking your butthole.
I
God
do
damn
a
it.
lot of things.
Oh, I'm losing the friction.
But, but anyways, if the ocean was 200 feet lower, what is now Indonesia and all the like strand of islands, Philippines, Jeremy, what's up? Would be about the size of Western Europe in landmass.
Wow.
And so,
Wait, what
That's-
constitutes West, like Germany West?
yeah, like huge.
That
Like,
is
in
pretty
terms
huge.
of an island, it's like
Kevin just said, yeah, he doesn't know.
no.
Like Lithuania.
Well, I mean, he definitely paused for a second.
like Serbia West.
I Wikipedia'd it. Okay, you pieces of shit.
What is Western Europe? It's bigger than the islands are now. That's enough. I feel like all of those like Southeast
Definitely.
Asian islands can fit in France right now.
And
yeah.
But the reason why I like this idea so much is because if there was one civilization that happened like a long fucking time ago, and then the Ice Age ended, and then the oceans rose, within a year, this entire civilization that was on this continent.
Okay, how could they melt in a year? It's been like 30 years since we found out about global warming.
And we have a
And
lot
our
of
ice
cars in
caps-
LA.
What?
We have a lot of cars in LA contributing to global warming.
Oh, yeah.
And they didn't even have Leo DiCaprio to help slow it, like we do.
Yeah, dude. Oh, good old Leo, dude.
I know. He's like, save the Earth. Let me get on my private jet and burn 5 billion gallons of fuel.
Yeah, we got shots right home.
Andy Lokes, Andy Orozco, followed us on
Orozco.
Instagram. Try
All
out.
right, yeah.
Thanks, Brad.
You are the first person who we have no idea who you are who's followed us.
And your most recent Instagram picture
And if
is
we
just
do-
of a Modelo, and that's awesome.
I support that statement. We probably- so okay, if these civilizations were on this,
This island, I'm
This
guessing,
island, yeah.
or like this
Well,
new continent,
because I've read
old
somewhere
continent.
that the Ice Age, it was like the theory is that like when the Ice Age ended, it ended so abruptly that these people all had to move out from this one location in such a short amount of time that when they left, they took all these stories about their homeland and where they're from, and they shared them with wherever they went.
I mean, that makes sense. And how
That's really
how
cool.
Indonesia's kind of being hit now with global warming, my guess is they were probably hit by quite a few storms.
That's
Yeah.
So
That's
it
a
probably
super
wasn't
cool
even
idea.
slow. It was probably super
Also,
fat.
this
Like,
explains why there's so many parallels between architecture at the time, like the pyramids. That's not just an Egyptian thing. Like
we have pyramids everywhere. But
There's
okay,
pyramids.
wait. We have pyramids, and then we have step pyramids. Are you talking about both?
but
Or
the
maybe it's just
architecture
because
in
pyramids were
general look
easiest to build.
No, but like.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here.
Well, the fact is that no matter where you
Satan.
go, anywhere in the world, the architecture looks the same.
Yeah, there's very and people are like, okay, either
Throughout
the
all
Egyptians
eras, yeah.
built the pyramids, migrated to South America, showed them that shit, or the South Americans built the pyramids, showed Egypt that, or what many quote unquote scientists believe is that like the places that have pyramids just independently decided like let's build pyramids and they discovered it. But it's
Yeah.
cooler to think it's from a common
Little
history.
disclaimer, I don't know whether this is factual or not. So now we are leaving the realm of established ideas and theories to maybe my own. I believe that Alaska has pyramids. Is that just me? Have you guys heard of any of that? No, I'm serious. I'm serious. And kind of going back to Chris Dunn last episode, like people think that they're powerhouses.
I'm actually not sure if Alaska had pyramids because I've seen snow dogs.
Dig.
All right, B. So there are pyramids in Alaska.
And she's giving us the thumbs up. Yeah, right there. So there are pyramids in Alaska.
They've got to be made of ice.
Which means that there have to be pyramids, and I'm pretty sure it was buried underground. I know I made that. Yeah, exactly. She's giving us another thumbs up. They were buried underground, so there are probably pyramids all across the world that are buried underground, which means that aliens exist.
Let me go on a list real quick of like some international things that relate to. Okay, so here are some things that seem like more than just coincidences. The Toltecs, Nahuatlacas, and Aztecs of South America.
What was that second one?
You just like
Nahuatlacas.
so many.
So how do you spell that? Is that N-O?
Nahuatlacas of South America.
Wait. Can I get Kevin to say that in his beautiful accent?
Nahuatlacas. Oh my god. Okay, so these three peoples of South America and all the races that settled in Mexico, they have traced their ancestors back to a starting point called Aztlan or Atlan in the Atlantic. And it was a land they described as too fair and beautiful to be left willingly, which was lost under the sea after a great flood. Ties it back to Noah. And the natives of Mindanao in the Philippines, holla, hashtag lumpia, hashtag adobo nation, are Mamsar, are the Atas, who have the same flood myth and claim descent from light-skinned invaders who intermarried with the Aboriginals. And in Africa, there is an Atlas mountain on one of their shores. I don't know where in Africa. There is an Atlan town on the shore of somewhere in America, the Atlantis living along the north and west coast of Africa, and Aztec people from Aztlan in Central America, and an ocean rolling between the two worlds called the Atlantic. And there's a mythological deity which we talked about called Atlas, holding the world on his shoulders. And holding the world on his shoulders, Atlantis. It's like Atlantis is like the birth of civilization, carrying civilization on his shoulder. Oh my god, that's crazy.
No, this is like blowing my mind. This is like a mass Atlantean emigration.
Right? It's crazy to think of. And then the immemorial tradition of an island of Atlantis. And can all of these be the result of an accident? And like all these things are like, those are all real things.
Yeah.
That are like around the world.
And they all have like the phonetical.
The thing is, there are so many things that are lost to modern civilization, and yet we have this idea that we know everything because science has shown us so many of the workings of technology, but we don't know about history.
Oh yeah, no, but it's crazy to think about like, okay, all of these different cultures have ties to an Atlantean of some sort legend of a fantastic society that was destroyed in a great flood. And the same thing with Noah. It's like almost every culture around the world has a great flood story. And I was thinking earlier, it's like we talk about how all great artwork steals and it's derivative, and it's like, oh okay, and then I feel like our Western society, we tie everything back to the Greeks, like, oh, we're taking it from the original Greek stories. But I feel like even the Greeks probably weren't original if they were like us.
The reason that the reason that exists is because during the Renaissance era we had the classical revival,
who were in love with the Greeks.
Exactly.
But I think the Greeks, it probably goes back to like Mesopotamia, blah blah. My hypothesis, which has no basis in anything besides my gut, is that if you go back far enough, all right, I think the only thing they would have had to steal from is what we were saying earlier, real life.
Yeah.
So I think every story that we have today is like a dilution over hundreds and hundreds of years of real things that happen that were kind of twisted.
And I think, nowadays we're like, oh, how could that story even stay alive? Just word of mouth. But back then, word of mouth is all they had.
That was
that was as much as concrete can get back then.
They were bored as shit. All they had to do was tell stories.
Exactly.
And stare at fires.
They did not.
Like, oh look, a running
Also,
rain.
aliens
It did
aside,
flicker.
Like, the pyramids may have just been like an architecture that the original peoples, the Atlanteans, like preferred, and so, and then over.
Or they were a powerhouse. They were how they
Or it was
fueled
just
all their
home
technologies.
it could go either way. Or it was just their home country, and then, as they leave, they talk about this great place they come from. That's amazing. And through, storytelling. Again, all they had was storytelling, so it always gets embellished. And that's something that,
Well,
even
I mean,
historians
people
talk
who
about.
are like storytellers like Homer, it's like, I don't think they embellished. I think they memorized it rigorously.
Well, and when it just gets told over and over again.
Like, I
it
don't
just
even believe
becomes,
that
this
Homer
great story.
really wrote the Odyssey. What?
Well, that's another mystery of history.
Whoa.
But also, it's stories get embellished, and so that's why the Atlantis is supposed to be this place where this technology thrived that nobody fucking understands. But it's really just their homeland.
We're gonna get into some stuff right now that is a little bit unsubstantiated, but it's fun.
Okay, so now
So-
we are leaving the
Is this your
realm
favorite part?
of fact.
No, we kind of went through my favorite. This is part of my favorite part. Okay,
No, we
so
left that out the door.
there are people who believe that the people who made Atlantis were gods who taught us their knowledge. That's why it was all over the world. In exchange, this kind of ties back to the Great Pyramids, for us building them things because of the countless stories of Atlantis and Great Flood stories around the world. And this dude named Ignatius Donnelly, who wrote a book called Atlantis, the Antediluvian World, which I have only read about online. I haven't read. Maybe I'll read it. I recommend you read it. Ignatius came to the conclusion that civilization itself, we talked about this had begun with the Atlanteans and spread throughout the world as the Atlanteans established colonies in all these places. And his book became a worldwide bestseller. But researchers could not take it seriously because it offered no proof for his ideas.
Only the most important thing in the world.
All scientists are going, oh, you can't prove it.
Yeah, but you know what? No, but he talks about that all these theories because he offered no proof. But I think the proof is there because we were just talking about the proof of all these kind of language remnants throughout the world. Okay, last point before Kevin talks. This is a little bit unrelated, but modern scientific surveys of the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean shows that it's covered with a blanket of sediment that must have taken millions of years to accumulate, and there is no sign of a sunken island continent. But I read that and I was like, how could they have surveyed every foot of the Atlantic Ocean?
Yeah, I call bullshit on
Right?
There's no
I'm like,
fucking way.
there's no disruption here, The final theory that we have for today, which is the most popular theory
By
from
scientists.
people. Yeah,
Not
but-
just by
because of
Heathens
all
like
of the
us.
information,
Yeah.
is the Minoan theory. And I'm gonna talk a lot here. Let me just get through it and then go
then
crazy.
we'll-
Don't lose your thoughts. Okay, here we go. The strongest theory for where Atlantis was that it was the story by Plato was inspired by the Minoan eruption of Thera, which is today known as Santorini. Because if you look at what Santorini is now in the collection of islands, it used to be a more solid thing that was fucking blown apart by a huge natural disaster many, many years ago. It was one of the worst natural disasters ever around the mid-2nd millennium BCE. Their advanced society disappeared right around the time of the disaster. And because both this Minoa and Atlantis, I'm going to talk about the parallels. They both had powerful navies. They both had technology more advanced than their neighbors, and they both granted women relatively high legal status and enjoyed the ritualistic sport of bull leaping, which is bulls come, young men jump over the bulls, which is a little different than the Spanish one we have. But the main problem argument against this theory is that the years they have for when the Minoan eruption happened don't coincide with the year that Plato says in the book. But people think that there was an error translating from one language to the other of Plato's original books, and that they added an extra 0. So instead of 9,000 years, it'd be 900, which would place it much closer to the Minoan eruption. And the way this eruption was so huge, people compare it to the most powerful volcanic explosion in recorded times, which happened on Krakatoa in 1883, which there was a giant tsunami 120 feet high, which killed 36,000 people, blackened the air for 3 days, and you could hear the sound of the explosion as far as 3,000 miles away. And they're saying the one that they think sunk, Minoa, was 4 times as strong. How they know that? I don't know. If it was before history.
You don't Manoa?
You bastard!
Oh, that dog.
Oh, that was a good... I said don't interrupt. I'm glad you interrupted for that. That was a good one. The tsunami that hit Crete, aka Minoa, must have traveled inland for over half a mile, destroying coastal towns or cities. The great Minoan fleet of ships were all sunk within seconds, and overnight the powerful empire was crushed, and Crete was turned into a political backwater. And one can hardly imagine a catastrophe more like Plato's description of Atlantis than what happened to Crete/Minoa. It was called Minoa back then, it's Crete now. And Crete/Santorini. And this here ties back to the Great Pyramids. If you've ever wondered where the geographic center of the world's land area is, there's two. There's the land one, which is the Pyramid of Giza, and the other one is latitude 34 degrees 26 minutes north and longitude 27 degrees 19 minutes east, which puts it in the eastern Mediterranean Sea, halfway between Athens, Greece, and Alexandria, Egypt.
Dun,
which
dun,
is
dun.
Which is a little bit southeast of Santorini.
And we talked about that
Santorini.
last episode, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in tribute to these centers of ancient Greek civilization, the geographic center of the world's land area is designated Mesogeos. So that's the entire of that point. So the Minoan theory, pretty close to the geographical center of the world.
And the Minoans were on the island of Crete, right? Which is just...
Yeah.
Just like a hop, skip, and a jump. Well, because I also like this one because it's also based in a more realistic aspect. Is that like there was this civilization that was kicking ass, and then
Documented Minoan.
Yeah, and taking names.
Yeah, like these were real people, and then all of a sudden they weren't. So the size of the volcanic eruption, although that cannot be recorded. So I'm interested to see how big the eruption actually was. Maybe it wasn't the size of Krakatoa, but like
You're saying it's 4 times as big.
But like, I don't really know that. It's
Yeah.
what I'm curious about. But if
So you're saying that it was a tsunami that just wiped out a whole continent.
Sunk them to the sea.
well, the island of
Left
Crete,
Santorini.
it's just
So you're saying that Crete was Atlantis.
yeah, it's small.
Modern day Crete/Santorini. What Atlantis was used to be there and then sunk, which would, like, geographically,
Crete
and,
is teeny.
yeah,
not-
exactly.
it's not
so,
super tiny.
but
Crete
no, but
is
it does.
small as
It's
shit.
not. It's not Asia and Libya together.
It's not even Ireland.
Yeah, it's not even Ireland. So that definitely is like picking and choosing of what in the Plato legend myth we want to
yeah.
believe.
I personally, for me, that doesn't do it.
Plato's not dragging his ass to Ireland. Like,
I'm really not saying that Ireland is it. I'm saying
but
like
what I'm saying is like Plato could have actually been to the island of Crete, and Plato could have actually stolen from the story of like the Minoan people just fucking they were a civilization and then they weren't instantly, and that story he could have actually heard about.
okay, but what
because
about
it was
what?
right next
But
door.
what about all the pyramids around the world?
That is the more ambitious theory that we have talked about.
They could have moved out from where they were. Like, they could have sent people around.
So there's that thought process, and then there's the thought process that Jeremy just talked about, which is like there was a civilization. It wasn't like as amazing as it was just had more technology, like the Minoan people, and then like a natural disaster happened and just wiped it out overnight.
Yeah, I mean, we have all these accounts of it having better technology, but from Plato's standpoint, better, like, advanced technology is like a drum that, has some little maraca things on it.
Right, dude. Imagine if they had seen an iPhone.
Dude, they would have shot.
Imagine if they-
Even Atlantis would have shot bricks.
Oh fuck!
Like, oh my god, and you can filter your Instagram? Amazing.
I was about to make a bad joke. I was going, "What's the internet?" Yours is infinite. God damn it.
Let's
What do you
start with Jeremy.
Okay. My final belief, I think because of how internationally widespread the ideas of Atlantis are, I think absolutely Atlantis existed. Like, it was a real thing. Plato didn't make it up. As far as where it actually was, I'm not sure. I think either the Minoan thing or somewhere random in the Atlantic. And I believe it was regular human beings who were incredibly powerful, very intelligent, like
But not like alien technology.
I don't think alien. I think pyramids. But I think the pyramids are aliens. Possibly alien technology. But I think a great human power who, like, kind of like a better version of like British, where just like they just colonized everywhere and they were doing all these things and it was great. As far as what wiped them out, I don't know. I have no thoughts on that. And I will say that is my current position on the Atlantean
It
theory.
is a good one.
Yes, it is.
Kevin?
Kevin?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm definitely going with the Atlantis was like the first like best civilization, but I
Like the mother civilization, kind of
But
like,
I
you
don't
know,
think their
Latin,
technology was
Roman
that
is like the
advanced.
mother
Like,
language.
I think they were like, I think they,
Texas.
Honestly, I think honestly they were just the first civilization, and therefore they were already advanced because they were the first civilization. I don't think they were. I don't think they had like alien
Gunpowder,
technology,
even.
unless they did have alien technology and the aliens sunk Atlantis. New theory. That's my favorite one.
All right, so that's it.
Yeah,
he
that's-
thinks that aliens founded Atlantis and
Or
then
they
nuked it.
All right, Matt, what's yours?
Oh my god.
I would have to say I am most in love with the idea that during the Ice Age, you had maybe Indonesia, maybe that was the hub of civilization, because I think it's rather hubristic to believe that it would be off the coast of Spain or it would be in Crete, where we now have the mother of civilization as we know it being Western Europe or the Mediterranean. I romanticize the idea that during the Ice Age was when Atlantis was able to thrive, and they had tropical land and arable land that they were able to be way more advanced than anything that came after it. And then, the Ice Age happened, and there was
Destroyed
nothing
by-
that they could even control about that.
That's a good one. I have to say, when I began the research, I was incredibly disappointed because it was all about above ground civilization that was destroyed and sunk, when I really wanted it to be like the Little Mermaid and like have like King Triton like ruling like an underwater thriving civilization. We're like, we can breathe underwater and we have singing crabs. Like, that's what I wanted Atlantis to be.
Dude, I mean, that version of Atlantis can maybe still be there. You never
That'd be
know. I mean,
super
we
cool
haven't
to find.
discovered all of the ocean.
During the research, you blowing my mind right now. Dude.
There's no research. There's no, like, if you look online, there's nothing that
Nothing
even
that suggests
hypothesizes
No, that's
an
Jeremy's
underwater
little fantasy.
like, thriving
I mean,
civilization.
It's pretty fucking time,
Oh my God, I was
Kevin
just
has a
reading this
redhead
thing.
fetish.
Hold up, I was just reading.
Don't tell
all the,
Kayla.
all the princesses in The Little Mermaid
Yeah.
are all different seas. All the seas on the planet.
Oh,
you have,
really?
Yeah.
Is there
so
an
you
Indian
have
one?
you have the Red Sea, which is Ariel because of her red hair.
Okay.
And then you have like the Baltic Sea and all that, and then you have the Dead Sea, which is her mother, which is why you don't see her in the movie.
That's so sad.
That was actually a meme, so.
Wait, is there an Indian Ocean one? Oh, seas.
Seas, yeah. So not oceans.
Is there a C-section? No, I'm just kidding.
All right, guys. That has got to be.
All right, come see us on tour. Just kidding. We don't have that kind of a resource.
All right. Thank you for joining us. This is Trihouse Presents Histories of Mysteries, Atlantis.
Join us next week. No, what the fuck next week?
Join
Next time for Roanoke.
Oh,
And
is
if you
Roanoke
watch-
the official next episode.
I
Yeah.
think it might be.
And if you watch American Horror Story Extra, because we're going to talk about the facts that they're destroying with their Hollywood liberalism.
And that basically talks about current Atlantis, which is America.